There exists a peculiar moment in every conversation when you realize that the most powerful words are those that were never spoken. You are in a business meeting, everyone talking at once, launching ideas, making promises, revealing strategies. There is one person, however, who remains silent. They observe, listen, absorb every word, every nuance, every unspoken tension. When they finally open their mouth, everyone falls quiet. Their words carry a weight that the others do not possess. Why? Because they understand something fundamental that Niccolo Machiavelli, writing 500 years ago in the turbulent courts of Renaissance Italy, grasped with crystalline clarity. Silence is not the absence of power, but its purest and most concentrated manifestation. Machiavelli lived in an age of deadly intrigue, where a misplaced word could result in exile, torture, or death. As a diplomat for the Florentine Republic, he observed princes and popes, generals and merchants, all playing the dangerous game of power. He saw brilliant men destroy themselves with their own tongues, revealing too much, promising recklessly, speaking when they should have remained silent. From these observations was born a wisdom that transcends his time and remains devastatingly relevant. Speaking less is not weakness, but strategy. Silence is the weapon of the strong, not the weak. The first lesson Machiavelli teaches us about the power of silence resides in human perception. He wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience who you really are. This observation reveals something profound about how power functions. People do not respond to your interior reality, but to the image you project. When you talk too much, when you explain yourself excessively, when you reveal every thought and feeling, you destroy the mystery that makes someone fascinating and formidable. You become predictable, and what is predictable can be manipulated, circumvented, ignored. Silence, on the other hand, creates a blank canvas where others project their own fantasies, fears, and assumptions. You become an enigma, and enigmas command attention and respect. Consider how this manifests in modern life. The co-worker who constantly shares every detail of their projects, their ideas, their strategies, quickly becomes background noise. Everyone knows exactly what to expect from them. There is no surprise, no tension, no power. Compare this with the person who works quietly, who keeps their plans guarded until the precise moment of revelation. When this person finally presents results, the impact is multiplied precisely because no one saw it coming. The silence created suspense, and suspense is concentrated power waiting to be released. Machiavelli also understood that silence functions as a mirror, reflecting the insecurities and anxieties of others back at them. When you remain quiet in a conversation, something remarkable happens. The other person begins to grow nervous. The silence creates a vacuum that most people feel compelled to fill. They start talking more, revealing more, exposing themselves in ways they never intended. They begin questioning themselves, interpreting your silence as disapproval or judgment. They try to impress you, appease you, understand you. Meanwhile, you simply observe and learn. Every word they utter in their attempt to break the silence gives you more information, more advantage, more power over the situation. Think about high-level negotiations. The amateur negotiator enters the room full of energy, speaking rapidly, explaining their position, justifying their demands. The master, the one who has studied Machiavelli's lessons even without knowing it, does the opposite. He leaves long pauses. When the other side makes an offer, he does not respond immediately. The silence stretches, uncomfortable, tense. The other party begins to wonder. Was it too low? Are they offended? Should we improve the offer? And then, without the master having said a single additional word, the other party begins to negotiate against themselves, offering concessions that were never requested, simply to break the terrible weight of that silence. The second dimension of the power of silence that Machiavelli understood relates to the preservation of options. Words, once spoken, cannot be withdrawn. They become commitments, promises, positions from which you must defend yourself. Machiavelli observed princes who trapped themselves in impossible corners simply because they had spoken too much, promised too much, revealed too much of their intentions. Once you publicly announce a plan, you become a prisoner of that plan. If circumstances change, if new information emerges, if a better opportunity appears, you cannot simply pivot without appearing inconstant, weak, or dishonest. Your own speech has become a cage. The silent leader, on the other hand, maintains maximum flexibility. He is not tied to past declarations because he made few declarations. He can observe how events unfold, how adversaries move, how opportunities arise, and then act decisively when the precise moment arrives. His actions speak, not his premature words. This flexibility is a form of power that those who talk too much never possess. They have already revealed their cards, telegraphed their moves, committed themselves to courses of action that may no longer serve their interests. Silence keeps all doors open until the moment when you must choose one and only one. Machiavelli also recognized the mortal danger of flattery and how silence offers protection against it. He wrote that there is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. But here is the paradox. If everyone knows they can speak freely without consequences, you lose respect. People begin to treat you casually, without the appropriate weight. The solution? Speak less and listen strategically. When you speak rarely, people pay more attention when you finally do speak. They weigh your words more carefully because they know you do not waste words on trivialities. This creates an environment where truth has more chance of emerging, not because you explicitly encouraged frankness, but because your natural silence created a space where carefully chosen words have value. The modern world seems built to punish silence. Social media demands constant updates, perpetual presence, opinions on everything. The workplace values extroverts who speak in meetings, who network constantly, who are always visible and vocal. Culture says, if you are not speaking, you are not contributing. If you are not constantly promoting yourself, you will be forgotten. This pressure leads people to a fatal error. They confuse activity with progress, noise with substance, visibility with power. They talk and talk and talk, and with each word, they dilute their own power until nothing remains but noise. Machiavelli would remind us that this cultural pressure is precisely what makes silence even more powerful in the contemporary world. In an ocean of constant noise, silence stands out. In an age of oversharing, mystery becomes precious. In a time when everyone shouts their opinions, the one who speaks rarely but with precision dominates the conversation. Scarcity creates value. Diamonds are valuable because they are rare. Water is essential but cheap because it is abundant. Your words should be diamonds, not water. Each one chosen carefully, polished, released only when it maximizes impact. The rest? Strategic silence that allows others to reveal themselves while you remain protected. There is also a deeper psychological dimension of silence that Machiavelli intuited. He observed that fear is a more reliable tool of control than love, because fear depends on you, while love depends on the whims of others. Silence cultivates a particular form of fear, not obvious terror, but anxious uncertainty. When you are predictable and vocal, people know how to deal with you. They understand your patterns, your reactions, your limits. You become manageable. But when you are silent and unpredictable, you become unsettling. People do not know how you will react, what you are thinking, what you plan to do next. This uncertainty keeps them cautious, respectful, slightly apprehensive, exactly the balance Machiavelli would recognize as ideal. Judges master this technique instinctively. Observe an experienced judge during a trial. They do not speak constantly. They listen, observe, occasionally ask a penetrating question, but mostly they remain silent, and this silence carries tremendous weight. Lawyers adjust their arguments trying to read that silence. Witnesses become nervous under that silent gaze. When the judge finally pronounces judgment, the words fall like hammers precisely because they were preceded by so much charged silence. The silence did not diminish their authority. It amplified it. Experienced parents also discover this truth, though few articulate it consciously. A long silent pause from a disappointed parent can melt a child into guilty confession faster than any furious sermon. Silence creates space for conscience to operate, for guilt to emerge, for remorse to form. Fill that space with words, even just and true words, and you give the child something external to resist. Maintain the silence, and they must confront their own internal judgment, which is always more severe than any external condemnation. Machiavelli would also warn us about the crucial difference between strategic silence and mere passivity. The silence that confers power is active, not passive. It is conscious choice, not anxious escape. It is sharp observation, not timid disengagement. When you remain strategically silent, your mind is highly engaged. You are reading the room, processing information, identifying patterns, calculating your next move. You are present and intense, just not vocal. This type of silence radiates power because others can sense the intelligence operating behind it. They know you are not silent because you have nothing to say, but because you choose to wait for the right moment to speak. Compare this with the silence of the timid or insecure. This silence is born of fear, and others can detect it instantly. It does not confer power but invites disrespect. The difference lies in the energy that accompanies the silence. Powerful silence is calm but alert, quiet but present, reserved but confident. Weak silence is withdrawn, anxious, hoping not to be noticed. One is the stillness of the predator watching its prey. The other is the freezing of the rabbit, hoping the predator will pass. In the arena of modern business, Steve Jobs exemplified the power of strategic silence. He maintained absolute silence about Apple product launches until the last possible moment. This silence created overwhelming suspense, frenzied speculation, anticipation that could not be bought with any amount of advertising. When he finally revealed a new product, the impact was maximized precisely because it had been preceded by so much mysterious silence. He understood intuitively what Machiavelli knew. Silence is not the opposite of communication, but its most potent form. The absence of information creates hunger for information, and when you finally feed that hunger, you completely dictate the terms. Machiavelli would teach us to distinguish between different types of silence and when to employ each one. There is the silence that conceals intentions, protecting your plans until the moment of execution. There is the silence that forces others to reveal themselves, creating discomfort they feel compelled to fill. There is the silence that amplifies your words when you finally choose to speak, making each word weigh more because it is rare. There is the silence that preserves flexibility, keeping you free from premature commitments. There is the silence that cultivates mystery, making you fascinating because never entirely comprehensible. Each serves a different purpose, and the master practitioner knows which to employ in each situation. The practice of this art requires considerable self-awareness and discipline. We live in an age that values transparency, authenticity, constant sharing. These are virtues in certain contexts, but Machiavelli would remind us that in the game of power, total transparency is strategic suicide. Unbridled authenticity means everyone knows your weak points, your fears, your limits. Constant sharing means you have already revealed everything you have of value to reveal. Strategic silence does not mean dishonesty, but intelligent discretion. It means understanding that not every thought needs to be vocalized, not every plan needs to be announced, not every reaction needs to be displayed. Start small. In your next meeting, speak half of what you normally would. Observe what happens. You will notice that when you finally contribute, people pay more attention. In your next negotiation, practice uncomfortably long pauses after the other party makes an offer. Watch how they begin to adjust, to offer more, to fill that vacuum. The next time someone asks your opinion on something controversial, try a simple, interesting, let me think about that, and then say nothing more. Observe how your refusal to commit immediately gives you more power than any passionate opinion possibly could. The rule of silence is not about becoming mute or withdrawn. It is about understanding that power flows not from the volume of your speech, but from its strategic deployment. It is about recognizing that in a world drowning in words, the person who speaks least but says most commands the room. It is about embracing the Machiavellian truth that has endured for 5 centuries. Those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know. The wise leader, the effective negotiator, the person who truly wields power, understands that silence is not empty space to be filled, but concentrated potential waiting for the perfect moment to be released. master this, and you master one of the most fundamental principles of power that Machiavelli identified in the cutthroat world of Renaissance politics, a principle that remains as true today as it was then.